Dumelang, sanibonani, absheni, hello, kamaku, thokozani, lesedi kganya. Ka lebitso ke Kutlwano, Kutlwano Motaung, ke Motaung wa Ramogele, Lekolokotwana. Batho ba nko ba siya. E tla re ha ja o tshe meriti e menyenyane ya diotlwana. O ja polokwe a se qete, empa o hanna sengwathana sa maobane. Motaung. Mhleli, ne ke dlala ma-skr. Please introduce yourself.
Umkhusela lo makhosi hayi umkhusela lo inyanga futhi engayisona ngokuba inyanga umprofeti othole ingilosi yakhe esibhakabhakeni inyanga yamashkrishkri igedla lamakhosi ukhushwana inyamazana ngiyasithoba phambi kwenu ngibulisa ngothando kaNkulunkulu makhosi.
Makosa. So today we want to tackle the topic of spiritual ignorance. I think I want to pass it to you first to say, what is spiritual ignorance for you, and what are the dangers? I don't want to just aim at 2Ks and young adults, but I think even though our channel is specifically for those people, this does also touch on the baby boomers and the baby boomers kids, so our grandparents and our parents. I think this also does hit them because we're all connected. But yeah, Mkulu, for you, what is spiritual ignorance and what are the dangers? Nami ngizongena la.
Eish, umbuzo omuhle lo, especially in the day and age where you're finding a whole lot of spiritual teachers, so-called advisors, abanika abantu ulwazi bathi yiyo le indlela ayikho enye indlela.
No.
Coming with specific religious dogmatic teachings that instead of empowering you as a living spirit, they are disarming you in a world where you are faced with myriads and myriads of spirits. Mkhulu, I would, if sikhuluma nge-spiritual ignorance, ngokwesintu, sisuke manje kumele silande from the Witchcraft Act which was put on us.
Sure.
In order ukenzani ukuvala lo msebenzi wethu, ukuvala lezinto thina esikholwa kuzo.
Ngicela ukufaka emlonyeni kancane. Some of our viewers don't know what that is. Mawuthi Witchcraft Act ukhuluma ngani?
Ngingathanda ukuthi niyenze i-research kodwa ekufikeni angifuni ukuthi abantu abakhanyayo kodwa ekufikeni kwalaba abasifaka ngaphansi
Ngiyakuzwa ukuthi
okugqilazeka okuthize
sure.
ekufikeni okwabantu esibabiza phecelezi our colonizers.
Yeah.
Bafika uma babona ukuthi thina silandela kuphi ukuthi basinike lokho bona abafika nako, which is obviously Christianity, the missionary work. If you do your research, you'll see that there was an act that was implemented, a anti-witchcraft act, which made this thing, a CEO, legal to practice. And with generations, as that went on, as you know, things generationally become a norm. You have things like, what can we use as an example? We have things like in the Eastern Cape, Uktwala as in ukuthatha intombazane ngenkani uyishade, which is a norm. It's a norm because it was allowed to go on for generations.
It was considered as acceptable according to that society. It was normal for them.
Exactly. And due to this act that was put on us, the Anti-Witchcraft Act that was put on us.
Just a pause. Kemi TV is not in support of abducting women and forcing them to be your wives. It was just a reference, but please continue.
Yeah. Due to Leo Act and it being enforced for years and generations that followed, lento le yafika yasifaka ngaphansi kwengcindezi la namhlanje abantu still have that trauma where they believe ukuthi this thing that we practice is witchcraft. Konke is witchcraft. Kodwa spiritual ignorance is the result of dogmatic teachings which are of no spiritual benefit to you.
Wow. That is
especially uma umuntu onsundu utshelwa ukuthi okhokho bakho, ogogo bakho, omkhulu bakho amadimoni.
Yes.
Something like that from a line of people that followed these things. Izohamba ikuvale. izohamba ukuthi umsamo wasekhaya ungebisikho and if unganamsamo ulahlekile ngokwami njengenyanga if unganamsamo ulahlekile.
Ngiyakhuluma baba. Kumele sixoxe nayo ukuthi kuyini umsamo, but I also just want to come in my opinion, spiritual ignorance is when you are deliberately or not, unaware of the principalities, the occurrences, the spiritual laws that govern our universe and how you are impacted by them, particularly as umuntu omnyama. You know, everyone has indabuko yabo, everyone has where their ancestors come from and what worked for them as a society for generations. If you look into history, everyone had their golden era and the things that they did that led them into living in peace and prosperity and abundance that worked for them. And for me, spiritual ignorance is when you somehow you are beguiled or you deliberately turn your back against what worked for you and your family, and then you find yourself vulnerable to izinto la ngaphandle because you don't know better or you've been deceived. I don't know if maybe I've said too much.
No, mkhulu ithinte khona man, uyishaye khona. Now we're talking about spiritual ignorance at a universal level. Disarming people spiritually, because you must understand that spirituality is intricately connected with consciousness. If you disarm somebody of spirituality, there's a difference between religion and spirituality. If you disarm somebody spiritually, you have dumped them down consciously. And if you have dumbed them down consciously, they no longer take actions consciously. They can be their consciousness can be controlled by somebody else. Sesiyajula manje sikhuluma about the mass control system that's in place.
Yabona ukuthi akuphi bakancane. You touched the point and I thought you would go into it, but let me do it. You spoke about the Witchcraft Act, which oppressed our ancestors who were given spiritual, I don't even want to call them gifts, but inheritances, who harbored spiritual inheritances, which they then began to feel not even, I don't want to say ashamed, but they were not able to practice them because of the Witchcraft Act, which led many of them into church. And then even why I had to find a way to continue. Please just ngifuna ukuthi ichaze nguwe ngoba umprofeti wenyanga ngicela ujule. I think you know ukuthi ngiyakuphi.
Makhosi. Mkhulu ithinte khona. As Mkhulu has explained, due to the Witchcraft Act, we were forced to practice a religion that was not ours. Kuhlungu leyo ukuthi indawo yakho ithathwe ngenkani, unikezwe into okungaseyakho. Asikugxeki isonto, kodwa idlozi noma ithongo manje lalisebenza ngesintu, whether ubungoma unyanga, now had to manifest ubugele, had to now manifest through the church, and hence why manje kunobuprofeti, inyanga yamanzi nomlotha. Now these days we're having a phenomenon, but wonke umuntu uyathwasa, bayakhala bathi hey nangomunye uthokoza. They believe now it's a fashionable trend. This is not the case. This is due to now what we have. I would call it African spiritual renaissance. People are coming back ngoba bayabona ukuthi lento le bebayilandela ayibasebenzeli indaba yokuthandazela.
See, I knew we were gonna go there, but let's go there.
Indaba yokuthandazela.
But before uyalapha, nami ngifuna uku-add ngithi I'm not against church, I'm not against Christianity. All my grandparents were going to church and were practicing as Christians, and in as much as they're not alive today, they still it taught them valuable lessons, and they still carry that morality in the advices they bring to me as umtanabo. So asigxeki isonto, but we believe that there is something that ought to be said, something you ought to think about critically if you are really interested in uplifting yourself and unveiling the scale that has been placed on our eyes from the time we were born. So ngaqhubeka futhi ngathi ngayicala ngigcwalisele labo yakhona.
So we're having a spiritual renaissance where people bayabona ukuthi lento le abayilandelayo ayibasebenzeli inhlobo, ayixhumani nemvelaphi yabo nendabuko yabo. And so you're having this freedom that amadlozi namathonga now seeing taking place ukuthi I know sesiyakhona ukubuyela ekwenzeni izinto ezasekhaya ngendlela zaziyenza ngayo, hhayi ukuthi kumele manje sisifihle ngasemuva kwesonto. Asigqiki isonto, hamba futhi kube nenye indaba ekumele siyikhulume mayelana nesonto nemvelaphi yesonto. Kodwa okwamanje spiritual ignorance is the absolute disarming of any ethnic group and giving them a teaching that is absolutely redundant to them. Sesiyabuya manje ekhaya, yingakho noma ningakhuluma nithi sekunabothokoza abaningi inyanga eningi, it's because now we have the freedom to be ourselves.
100%.
Of course.
100%. And okay, I think we should make it practical for the viewer. I want to make an example. Toluguti, you were born in 2000. Yeah? You were raised by your mother. You don't know what happened with your dad. And then you have nightmares that you don't understand, but they tell you, no, it's just a dream. Maubhala ama-exam akubhaleki. You see shadows. Ngiyabheda man. And then umunye uzothi no, go to church and pray, everything will be okay. Thola ukuthi no, khona izinto ezidinga ukulapheka ngokwesintu. Cela ukuthi ujule mkhulu. I'm bringing this up to raise how spiritual ignorance can be a danger. Ngoba uthola ukuthi I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe I don't know, but I've never heard of isipoko silashwa ngokumanifesta kuphela. Angazi, maybe ngiyabheda. Ngizwa ngithini?
Ngiyakuzwa mkhulu. Mkhulu, uyabona masijula mayelana nokuthi you can pray anything away. That's the spiritual disarming I'm talking about. In your blood lies the codes and ancestral memories of abogogo, abomkhulu, abokhokho. Makafika kuwe uthole ukuthi the spiritual situation at home is not conducive ukuthi bafike bahlale. Ufika ungenwe inyanga noma ungena abantu bebanesibaya, but they want to enrich you. But their ideas of riches is ukulima, kuba ney'nkomo. When uthi no dude, I want a Bugatti. Awunamsamo ukuthi ukhulume nalabantu laba bona bebaphahla emsamo. That is the way they operated. Wena ufuna ukuya esontweni uyoguqa phambi komuntu olenge esihlahleni. Hayi siyajula.
I have to. I know that what I'm going to say is izocasuka abanye abantu, but I feel the impetus to really raise this ukuthi mkhulu uma ngiya etwinini ngithe mtawunga ramkhele, and I gave you the whole story as far as ithakazelo zami. Ngithe mtawunga ramkhele ha ke le mtawunga ramkhele empa ke ya mabitleng a Mfokeng ke re ke lo kopa mahlonolo. Motho jalo ha se o hlanya
Ulahla signal lapho ulahla i-signal altogether.
But why? Mofokeng ha ngtsebe ke mtaung, Mofokeng ha ngtsebe. So I could say maybe you'll continue from that.
Uyabona mkhulu, what we're basically touching on, so that it doesn't look like we're beating around the subject. Sekubizwe ithixo nonkulunkulu abaningi abangahlangananga nawe ndawo.
Sure.
Asimgxeki uYeshua Mashiach. He was a great prophet, a great alchemist, and he came to teach consciousness liberation. Wathathwa ke wajikwa waphekwa wayenzwa umlungu lengesihlahleni ukuthi that is not what he is. Lento ephekiwe ifika inikwe wena udube.
Sure.
Ngudube mina.
Sure.
Ngigijime ngiyobiza uYeshua wanansayo. La akhona lelo dlozi nayo yadideka ukuthi sixhumene kanjani negazi, except ngo-Adam nalithongo lethu elikhulu soyi-2. Kodwa wena uma uzothi ngiyamgxeka ugogo wami, ngiyamgxeka umkhulu wami, ngiyamgxeka ukhokho omkhulu wami ngibheka amathongo akudala
Mm.
ngiyahamba ngiyoguga ngiyothandaza umuntu engamazi not only Christianity in other religions uwumuntu omnyama ungayazi imvelaphi yakho uma izinto zingalungi ukuke uzibuze ukuthi why kungalungi it is because ulahla isignal
Hayi.
ulahla isignal ithawa yakho ayikho neze and la oya khona you are plugging your device into an incompatible software siyabo
Ngifuna ukugcwalisela lapho mina ngithi I think the issue I just want to raise ukuthi you said umuntu lahla isignal ne and I just want to make it really plain in simple terms hobaneng o le ke le mteong wa ramogele ha ke rapela ho modimo ke re modimo wa Jacobo for example hobaneng ke sa re modimo wa mtaung modimo wa ramogele if better hey, why can't I mention an African king modimo wa mshweshwe ngingunkosi futhi wayengathi uNkulunkulu kaNkosi uNkulunkulu waseswazini why ngitshwanetse ke re modimo wa Davida ha ngtsebe and then wa makala o sa ntho tsa wa di kopane wa makala that is part of spiritual ignorance ngoba ingelosi zakho abakini idlozi lakho elibhekane nempilo yakho liyafuna ukufika kuwe likubusise kodwa wena ore modimo wa Davida modimo wa Isaka ha o tsebe I know this is going to upset people but just think o ka se lebitleng la Mofokeng o le mtaung Mofokeng ha o tsebe o tlo fa jwang mahlonolo I just really had to and that is part of spiritual ignorance
yazi mkhulu ithinta khona and ngingathanda ukuyilanda khona eBhayibhelini manje wakwenzakalani uma ulazi iBhayibheli nike nisisize a side note nike nisisize nisijwayeze ukufunda iBhayibheli uma ningabaKristu uma ningamaSulumane read the Quran if uthatha isiJuda read the Torah make sure that you have an absolute understanding of whatever holy book you are being told to follow if mkhulu ubheka iBhayibheli uJehova enlili ngaphahluka uJehova wayeyenza njani uma amaJuda aqala ukubiza onkulunkulu
omunye beautiful he ubabhubhisile
bekabanquma
kakhulu
thina siyasinda amathongo wethu awasinquma kodwa uJehova yena lo olandelwa amaKristu yena wayebhubhisa uma kungasabizwi yena uma kungasalandelwa indlela zabokhokho babo ama-Israyeli indlela zaboJakobe indlela zabo-Israyeli indlela zabo-Abraham seeing that example do you not see ukuthi whenever kunendlela thizeni onikwabo babomkhulu when you deviate from it it always has repercussions in your life
yes
mina nje ngishiya lapho
no well put and that is a big part of spiritual ignorance I also want to mention spiritual ignorance in terms of mina ngifuna ukubuza abantu abamnyama and hey ngiyazi ukuthi ngizongizonda but I'm just applying my critical thinking to say how is it that ugogo wakho ukukhulisile uma wakho ukushiyeka gogo ugogo yakukhulisa ukupha ukudla udla itamati nguye konke lokho kodwa makashonile abantu bazothi sekuyidemona mase umbona emaphupheni hayi idemona for me I think that's also a big part of spiritual ignorance ngoba that's the person ukukhulisile lo muntu lona uhambe akukhulisile uyidlozi elihle kuwe kodwa wena sothi uyamthuka uthi idemona mawumbiza ngedemona uyamthuka how do you then expect ukuthi uzofika kuwe ekubeni umthukile and this is also a part of spiritual ignorance that I think especially us melanated people need to just be aware about ngoba ubani othe amadlozi amademona where does that notion come from
Ay Khehla uma nje I can add my 2 cents to that yebo spirits have the ability of taking different forms Mara, if you approach anything consistently with fear, without understanding, obvious yonke into kuyoba idemon. Noma kungafika ikati elikhulumayo la phambi kwakho uyothi idemon. Kuwukuthi uthole ukuthi this is a familiar spirit which exists within spiritual law, which within spiritual teachings there are animals called familiar spirits.
I don't think they're ready for that one.
Yeah. Mara ngizama ukunibonisa ukuthi if umqondo wakho ukuthi ayidemon as long as ingasuka Christ, ngifuna ukuthinta into ethize. Kudala thina sakhonza sishumayela, not usuku olulodwa ngiphupha ingilosi, not usuku olulodwa ngibona uJehova, not usuku olulodwa ngibona le ndoda eyafela esihlahleni yomlungu. Kodwa ngathi uma sengiguqa ngimisa umsamo, ngiphahla abakithi, ngiphahla ithongo lakithi bavela. So am I gonna go by the word of something that was absent, that I've never had a vision of, that I've never even seen or heard it speak in my ear? Or ngizoya ngendlela ukuthi manginyathela la emsamo, I had visions. Ngaboniswa ukuthi na imvelaphi yakho, wena umuntu oso naso naso, la ekhaya sebenza kaso. Yebo akhona
Batshele kancane. Umakhosi wonke, batshele kancane nje. Sexoxa ngelinye ilanga.
Hayi leso ithinta khetha sizothula. Sizothula. Kodwa you must understand imvelaphi yakho.
Yes.
This is not a universal path. Yabona, when they are spiritually disarming you and making you ignorant, they tell you ukuthi insipho eyi-1 iwasha ko. Akukho loyo, because even your fingerprints are unalike to any other human here on earth. Likewise, your spiritual journey, umsamo wakini uhlukile, umsamo wakamtawungu uhlukile emsameni wakwaDube. Yayizwa le nto ngishoyo.
100%. And also ngifuna ukugcwalisela lapho ngithi angigxeki isonto. I just want to mention that again ngoba khona elinye idlozi elizothi mawuthi wena uhlaba imbuzi lithi wenzani nomfana? Asiyenzi leyo nto. Mina ngifuna ikhandlela eli-white namanzi. I understand. So I understand.
Baphelele lapho.
Exactly.
Umsamo wasekhaya owakini usebenza kanjani? Kanjalo.
Exactly.
Khona amadlozi adla igazi safuthi. Yahlatshwa lapho. Hayi, yahlatshwa. Ungayi ngokuthi there's a blueprint for everybody.
Yes.
Wena thola imvelaphi yakho, uguqe ubabize abakini. Ubize umvelinqangi uthi wena uNkulunkulu omkhulu owadala izulu nomhlaba. Ngiboniseke amathongo wakithi. Bafike bona bahamba nethunywa zakini bazokwenzani, bazochazela imvelaphi yakho nokuthi la ekhaya senza kaso njengoba umkhulu sekasho amanzi nekhandlela nje kuphela. Yaphahlwa la ekhaya nje kuphela, yonke into iyaqonda. Kwenye indlu wena uthi hayi thina sifuna ukuphahla nje kuphela idlozi lakini ngithi sifuna inkomo thina. Uzothini ke wena? Asihlabi la ekhaya. Qhubeka ke uhlupheke.
And that is spiritual ignorance. Uzohlupheka uzongena ethuneni ngoba wena you are spiritually ignorant to who you are, where you come from. Abakini bafunani? What is your fingerprint? What is your blueprint? Umsamo wakho ume kanjani? Phahla kanjani?
And the biggest thing that we need to disarm spiritually when it comes to indlela zesintu is ukuthi lo mcabango lo abantu abanawo wokuthi we worship our ancestors, we worship amathongo. You cannot worship an ancestor ngoba kusithixo. You cannot worship ithongo because ithongo themselves are in service of imvelaphi. So first remove that idea ukuthi mawuhlaba usuke uhlabele uNkulunkulu. Sizothula to explain ukuthi what happens at the spiritual realm when mawuhlaba. What does it do for the ancestor? It is not worship. You cannot worship. Okhona ukudumisa amadlozi. Ucula ngokuthi siyanikhonza. Hey. No. Ayikho nje leyo.
Ngiyakuzwa mkhulu. Ngifuna ukugcwalisela lapho ukuthi people don't know this, but that word pray, what does it mean? To pray is to ask, good people. So nathi singabantu besintu sithi siyakhuleka amakhosi. Angithi it's you are asking, uyazithoba abazali bakho when he or she was still alive ukuthi ngikgone ke kopa o nketsetse mtho ko kopa a o etsetse jwale hobaneng ha se o etsa jwalo a sa robetse mabitleng e se ile ka re ke ntho mpe. You were doing it your whole life, now all of a sudden. No, guys, can we just drop this mentality, this demon mentality yokuthi masowukhuleka kuba kini yinto embi. No, akusiyinto embi.
Nginombuzo.
Correct me if I'm
No,
wrong.
you're absolutely correct. But I think what causes that ideology or that thinking pattern mkhulu ukuthi abantu assume ukuthi hayi umuntu makafile ufile. Umuntu makafile ufile. Now this is my question to firstly to amaKristu, amaSulumane then amaJuda. I hope I don't offend anyone. Lana, we want to open the thinking and consciousness of people. Cause critical thinking. Nina Masuluman Maniti, Muhammad is going to come back in the last days. If truly somebody is dead,
Ukhama back kanjani?
ubuya kuphi?
Ufile ngithi. Akasekho ngithi.
Ufile. Uthi and ningathi hayi uJesu was special. uJesu makafa bathi wangena and he went to Hades for 3 days to get the keys of what? Life and death. And he went to preach to what? The spirits of the dead. Wabuya. Umzimba wakhe bowushabalele mzi. Kodwa umoya bowusaphila. If you read in the book of Kings, uzobona ukuthi kwakune story la uKing Saul wahamba athi uyohlola. Makahlola lenyanga wayeyohlola kuyo yavusa ubani? Yavusa umprofeti uSamuel. uSamuel waze wabuza wathi endoda ungibizeleni la? If truly this is the end of it, you too, you must know you are an eternal spirit being within a human body. Sabatita much.
Omunye uzothi, just to balance it out, omunye uzothi, no, that Saul case, it was a familiar spirit pretending to be Saul, or omunye uzosho kanjalo athi, no, mawulele you can't come back. All the communication you think is your ancestors. No, it's just familiar spirits. I've seen someone of that opinion. What is your take? I'll give mine.
Mina bakwethu nginyanga nomprofeti. I completely subscribe and believe in spirits. I understand them in their levels. I understand them in their offices. Understanding that ngiyazi ukuthi ngumoya ohleli kuphi emzimbeni. I am not the body. The body is the vehicle for what? The soul to come and experience this world. Umzimba moshabalala futhi ngiyoyeka lo mzimba, just as when the spacesuit is no longer useful, you take it off and you go about your life again on earth. Likewise, this suit ngizoyeka ngibuyele la ngiphuma khona. So my take on this whole thing is ukuthi umoya uyaphila after the physical body is discarded. The physical body is the needed vehicle for us to experience the 3D world.
This realm.
This realm.
Yes.
Yingakho there are no angels walking around eating fruits. There are no demons walking around eating fruits, because each and every spirit has its dimension or frequency of existence. And likewise, this is where the human existence is.
Well done.
Of course.
Ngifuna ukugcwalisela lapho ukuthi lento yamadlozi ne amaKristu they don't realize ukuthi naseBhayibhelini ikhona, ngoba you can't say uNkulunkulu kaMose, uNkulunkulu kaDavida. Those people are dead, angithi. And if they dead, if really when you die kuphelile ngabe, why do you mention umuntu ongasekho? And then you even keep a lineage ukuthi lo wazala lo was amadlozi, guys. Amadlozi. I went until
and at the end of the day, with that scripture you mentioned, if people look up the scripture, it says, I am the God of Jacob, the God of so and so, until the God of Abraham. I am not the God of the dead. I am the God of the living.
We futhi ngifuna ukugcwalisela lapho ngithi manikhumbule eBhayibhelini uNkulunkulu uthe he took soil, formed it, and breathed life into it. He did what? He breathed what? Like, meaning there's a 3D material physical element and there's a spiritual element. So yabona ukuthi if we see this even in the Bible. So umuntu, when the person dies, we can't then say no bhubhile uphelile. No, even uNkulunkulu waseBhayibhelini acknowledges that there is a non-material part. What happens to that? That's a whole topic, I guess, but we're just trying to conscientize Nina ukuthi no, Mohamba, when you die, it's not the end. You understand?
And back to our topic, That is part of the spiritual disarming that causes spiritual ignorance. If you can get a person to forget which they are a living immortal spirit, you can get them to only believe goodbye in Yama. They will never ever focus on developing their spiritual cognizance,
True.
their psyche. And if they don't develop that, it's much easier to control umuntu ocabanga nje ukuthi hey mina I just have to pay bills. Ngiyagroova this weekend ngiyashaya. Phelela lapho.
No, ayiqiniso lelo. Ayiqiniso. Amkhulayo wasivali. Angazi ukuthi usafuna ukungena noma.
Hayi mina nje iphuzu lami lokuphetha ukuthi our aim here akusi ukunyathela abantu. Our aim here is not to spark a revolution. Our aim here is not to demonize any religion, but it's to reawaken abantu eqinisweni, which is you are more than the flesh. That the dogma you've been given is not the be all and end all. Anything in this world that seeks to control you using fear, question. So
100%, yeah. Nami bengifuna just to add on to what you said ukuthi nina bantu abamnyama, especially the young ones, ngicela ukuthi be the generation that accepts, welcomes, cherishes, embraces the the spiritual renaissance that Mkulu spoke about. Be those people, because for whatever reasons it was more difficult for our parents and their parents because of the stigmatas and the witchcraft acts and so forth. But be the generation that's going to tap into who you are as umuntu omnyama. What is your DNA? Kuyini indabuko yakho, imvelaphi yakho? Niqondise imsamo yenu. Yabo.